Hey YouTube, I have got a very special guitar to share with you today from my collection that well, I did another poll to see what you guys wanted to see next coming out of my collection, and I put this as one of them, and it was overwhelmingly the winner. It was 50% out of 4, so this is clearly the winner, and it is without a doubt the crown of my collection. So I've kind of waited to even get into this guitar because it is just so cool, and I don't want to ever come across as like a guitar snob. I just had a run-in with some guitar snobs who were very upset over my association with this Inian Vena jazz box, the association to a Birdland. Oh, sacrilege. Oh my gosh, I was labeled a heretic and run out of town. But so I'm not in that crowd. I am not in the snob crowd. Most of my guitars are cheap. I have only actually paid over $1,000 for this guy. This is the only one. Now I've got guitars that are worth more than $1,000, but I didn't pay that for them. But I generally try to cap everything at $1,000, but not this one. This one, when I saw it and the listing, and I put an offer on it on Reverb, and the guy took it, I was like, I will dip into savings to get this guitar because this is amazing. This is a 1989 G&L Signature S500 in the box, and when I say mint, I'm not just saying excellent. This is mint condition, like practically new in the box. It still has the plastic wrap on the case, and it still has the plastic wrap on the guitar. I mean, this thing was clearly just bought by a collector, and it has all the original paperwork. See, here we got the original ad for the S500, and here's the packet of all the paperwork on this guitar, and so including the tremolo still in there, and I mean, just amazing. Amazing. And I love these cases too. These are wonderful cases. Check out, it's still got the desiccant from 1989, like this very old desiccant in the case here. So I mean, this thing is like, this is beyond even mint. This is like a time capsule. This is a time capsule, and I've played it just a few times because I want to keep this thing in the time capsule mint shape that it is. It mainly functions in my collection as a pick-me-up when I'm feeling down on a day, because I can get this thing out and I swear to goodness I hear the angelic chorus every time I open this case. I just hear angels singing because look at this thing. Oh, just immaculate. Immaculate. And this is the signature. This is the signature edition. There's the man himself, Leo Fender, on there. This is his signature edition, which in just a minute we'll get into, you know, what that means, but oh, it's still got the tape, like it still has the plastic wrap on the pick guard. It says on there, peel off protective film by starting at edge of pick guard. I mean, the listing said you are not going to find a nicer condition S500 in existence. And I mean, it was a little hyperbole, but not far off. This thing is absolutely, I mean, there is not an issue. Like, it is just like a time capsule of beauty that has just sat and just, oh, all these years. It's like opening up a reliquary for a medieval Catholic, the kind of feeling I get here. It's got these beautiful locking graphite tuners on it. I mean, of course, everything. I mean, this is not one of these reviews where I'm gonna, oh well, let's go with this or that. Like, this thing is immaculate. This thing is perfectly crafted. Every single seam and I mean, it is perfectly crafted. The frets are perfectly polished. This has silver alloy frets on it. It's like 90% silver, 5% nickel, and whatever. But this has, I mean, you're talking like, it's got, this is finely apportioned stuff. This, of course, has the MFD pickups in it in the Strat style. And this is the late 80s S500. They went a few different body styles in terms of the way that the model evolved. This is cut just like a Strat, basically. This is cut just like a Strat. And it is a 2-slab body and absolutely gorgeous wood. And this has got the old 3 style that G&L used to do on the neck bolts there. But I mean, you know, obviously this is not a review where I'm looking for faults. This is just more like, let's all bask in the beauty of this amazing guitar, because this thing is absolutely stunning and is, you know, I've got I've got a G&L A-Set Custom, and from around the same time period, it's a 93. It's a little bit newer, but same time period. It's a custom order. And so I've got some other, like, really nice G&Ls and so forth, but this is one that I would never take out and play in public, or, God forbid, go to, like, you know, a gig night or something. Like, I would never take this. I brought this one time when I was still a music leader. There was a wonderful old fellow, a good friend of mine in the church that loved hearing me talk about guitars. It was one of the things that got me into the idea of doing this, because I really enjoyed telling him about the guitars I was getting. And then when I was like, what am I going to do next? I was like, well, I'm good at talking, and I do love the guitars, and I love learning about them, and oh, well, this, I know, and all that good stuff. So, but I bought this while I was still a music leader, and the only time it's been out of my house since I've gotten it is when I brought it to him to show him in person, so he could just hear the angelic chorus as well, because it is just immaculate. And like I said, every so often I'll take it out to just bask in the warmth of its glory and oil it down and polish it and so forth, make sure it's all good and crisp, and go back in the box and await the next time I need to hear the angelic chorus. Because this thing, I mean, I was amazed I got it at the price that I did, and like, it's like I bought a guitar in 1989 and had it sent to the future. It is as mint can get. It is minty fresh, and it is absolutely gorgeous. It's breathtaking. Everything about it is absolutely breathtaking. It is just the most classic, awesome looking guitar. It is just amazing. And the S500 has, and you can get this also, I ended up buying, because this is, whoa, such an amazing guitar, and like I said, I was still leading music at the time, so I ended up buying a tribute S500, and at some point it would be a good, you know, fun thing to do as a comparison between the two. Here's a classic, you know, top of the line S500, and here's a new tribute model, and how do they compare? The chief, just looking at it in terms of like distinction and setup difference, is that this has a tiny little toggle switch here, and it is a two-way toggle, instead of the Tribute has pull-ups where you got a, now it's interesting, it's really cool, because when you activate that, what it does is put the pickups into a different alignment mode so that you can play with all 3 at the same time. And you can also play with the top and the bottom. And so if you have this on, you can play with all 3 pickups, and you can play with the top and the bottom, and that gives you even more options. One of the things about the evolution of G&L, if you're not familiar with G&L, it's George Fullerton and Leo Fender, G&L. They were best friends. They had grown Fender, the company, together, And I'll do another video as a biopic on Leo Fender's life, but just very briefly, he thought he was going to die, and so he sold Fender to CBS. A lot of people think he was like money grubbing or something. He thought he had been given a death sentence by his doctors, and so he sold the company to make sure that his wife didn't have to inherit the all the problems that would come with that. So from selling the company, so he went ahead and sold it to CBS. It's a weird era. It's the CBS, the fatheads and so forth, right? CBS era. So he sold it to CBS because he thought he was dying, and he made preparations to die, basically. And then he got a second opinion that said, well, we can try this treatment, and it's dangerous, but maybe it'll work. And it did. And then he was okay. And so he ended up living another 30 years almost. And so he had, what am I going to do next? And so he went back to work for Fender as a consultant for a long time during the CBS, especially during the early years of the CBS. He also got involved with the rise of Music Man, Sterling, and so forth. So we're getting into the 70s, but his beloved wife, his first wife, took ill with cancer and ended up passing. And when she died, he kind of went off the scene for a while, and he was literally living in a trailer even though he had millions of dollars. He had moved into a mobile home because it was easier for his wife to get around than a multi-level big house. And so it was smaller and more compact and everything. So he, and then when she passed, he was a real simple guy. He grew up on a farm, literally born in a barn. So he had millions of dollars, but he did not live like it ever in his life. And so he tried to figure out, what am I going to do next? And so, it was ultimately through meeting his second wife that he got his life back. He started loving life again. And then coming out of that, he had a 10-year non-compete agreement with CBS. Okay, so I won't make guitars to compete with you guys for 10 years. Now, he did that because he thought he was dying. He didn't think he had 10 years. But then 10 years ended up going by, and he said, well, what's next? And so he and George Fullerton, one of his best friends who actually introduced him to his second wife, they got together and said, let's do this again. Let's make a new Fender company, but this time with a different orientation just in terms of Fender became, it started as literally a radio shop where he was just fixing electronics, and then he had the idea of the solid body guitar. He made the Broadcaster, which became the Telecaster, and like very quickly the business grew way beyond any of his expectations, and he was, back ordering everything because it was just, and he was an engineer. He was a brilliant engineer, but Fullerton had much more of a business sense, and so together they created the giant that is Fender. Okay, so now he couldn't make another Fender product, so what they did was G&L, and they called it Guitars by Leo, George and Leo. And so they started using the same basic body types from Fender, but part of the idea was that Leo Fender was an innovator. He was never satisfied with any model. And it's a funny thing about him that he would disdain his old guitars, even though now they're worth buckets of money. But he didn't care, because in his mind every year was better than the last year, because he tinkered on this, he tinkered on that, he figured this out, he made that simpler, he made that better. So it was a process of evolution, and so he didn't even keep his old guitars. His wife, in the biography of him, talks about how she wishes he had kept some of them, because they have a couple prototypes and stuff, but he never collected any of his own guitars, because that just wasn't his thing. He didn't care. In his mind, the most important thing was, how do I make this a little bit better? How do I make this model better for next year? That was always his orientation. And so now that they were free from the traditioning of big Fender, big F Fender, now they could experiment. And they did a lot of experimenting. And they experimented with, well, what if we wire it this way? And what if we do this? They ended up coming up with the magnetic field design pickups, which are single coils that are basically noiseless and more powerful. They've got more or less the punch, getting closer to like a P90 or humbucker even, but without the associated problems. And you can actually dial them in, because they all have individual pull pieces that you can set. And amazing. And you will only find these on G&L products. This is proprietary stuff. is revolutionary, and I'm kind of surprised that you don't see more of them, people just buying these sets and putting them into Fenders and other guitars, because they are phenomenal. If you have never tried an MFD pickup and you like the tone of a single coil, but you want just a more powerful sound like you get with a humbucker, closer to that, but still keeping the jingle jangle of the single coils, and MFDs are amazing, amazing pickups. Okay, just absolutely amazing. And so they also went, historically he went too far, because they started putting all these other stuff in and it got too complex. And so there was a process of how much do we want to do, and then kind of boiling it down. And so this is the pinnacle of that evolutionary process, that you have all the research from Fender's lifetime going into this, and everything is just fantastic. I mean, I would put this alongside any other guitar out there, and I mean any, for quality, playability, looks, any category. I mean, this thing is just as nice as guitars get. I mean, it is truly a fantastic guitar. Now, what's the deal with the Signature? Okay, so now this is what I have been able to glean, because there's not just sources on this out there that I've been able to find, but this is what I picked up from books, articles, and chatter on forums and so forth. The earliest G&Ls all had Fender's hand signature on the inside pocket of the neck. And that was that he would inspect going out every guitar, and he would sign his name on every guitar going out in the early days. Now, they never wanted to be big like Big F Fender. Okay, they never wanted to be big. They wanted to, and they were closely tied, like they were just down the street, and they were cooperative too. Like, there was a lot of mutual respect there, and the G&L people really respected the Fender people. So, but the reality was that their numbers were always small, and they were intended to be small, because this was mainly just him doing what he loved, which was innovating and designing these amazing guitars. And so early on, he would sign every one. Now, he had Parkinson's, and so in his late life, he couldn't, he didn't have the motor control anymore in the last few years, and he worked right up until the day he died. He was a workaholic. Not he just loved. He had a deep passion for what he did, and he absolutely just loved doing it. And so going to work was like fun for him. Some of us might struggle with that notion, but he loved going to work. So he worked right up until he died. And when he was unable any longer to do that, and the numbers were getting too big and stuff, what they did was develop the so-called Signature series, where these were guitars, and it is actually some sort of a sticker, that it is a printed signature. It is not his hand signature. Okay. But I mean, it's on there flawlessly, and it's under the clear coat and everything. It's not just going to rub off. I can't rub it off there, right? It's under the clear coat. It's part of the finish of the guitar. But they started a signature line, and the idea was he can't hand sign it, but if you get a signature guitar, that means it went through his desk. This is what I understand. Now, I could be wrong, and but this is what I understand from various sources, is that the signature line was developed that so that he could continue to do that. He loved, as part of his day, to hand inspect guitars. This was not work to him. This was something he loved. He loved getting his hands on it. He loved seeing it. He loved seeing the craftsmanship. And if there was anything wrong with it, he'd send it back to correct. So these were like hand inspected by Leo Fender himself. And I mean, and this is a time capsule. This thing has not even been significantly played. For all I know, I might have been the first person to play it when I got it, because there's absolutely no indication that it's been played. But, oh my Lord, what a guitar. And everything absolutely immaculate. So I'm going to get it tuned up and give you guys some tone samples, but, this is what the people wanted to see. And, ooh, buddy, she is heart-fluttering beautiful. So I had to remind myself how these work exactly. So with the push-pull is actually a little bit easier because you know when it's engaged. So this one, it's when the little toggle is up, it's engaged. And so if you are on the top or bottom with it engaged, it will activate the neck and bridge pickups. It'll activate these two. And then if you're in, so that's position 1 and 5. If you're in position 2 or 4, it'll activate all 3. And so those are the distinctive sounds that you get out of this that are different than what your normal 5-way setup on a Strat. So we're going to start here on the bridge pickup without that activation so you can hear traditional bridge Strat tones. Oh boy, beautiful twang. This is all clean on the bassman setting. That's my general preference for clean channel for demoing. So that is on the bridge. Now we're on the bridge and middle. Alright, now we're on middle. Alright, now we're on neck and middle. Now we're on the neck. And do a little rhythm here. Turn the tone down a little. Just, I mean, fantastic guitar, clearly. Now let's go and hit that toggle, and so now we are on the neck and bridge together. Some people say in the forums that this is closest to a Telecaster setting in terms of the tone that you get. Oh, let me turn my tone back up. It's like, why am I not getting enough twang? I rolled the tone down. A little too much twang now. And this is with all 3 engaged. Alright, and now let's run through some distortion and add a little add a little drive to the channel. So this is still on all three. Now back to the top and bottom combo. The angels play rock and roll in heaven. I'm sure they've got them one of these. Woo! Man, this thing is just, whoo, gets my heart a flutter. Gets my heart a flutter. Just on the neck. Woo! All right, let's roll down to the bridge. So as you can all see, man, this thing is just a beauty, and I am so blessed to have it. And just, I don't even really consider myself the owner. I consider myself the caretaker of this for future generations. This is a time capsule of awesome guitar history. 1989 G&L S500 Leo Fender Signature. What I call in my family, the Leo Fender.